All right, so the next section is chapter 2, which is all about dividing polynomials. So we're going to be looking at when you have the situation where you are going to divide a polynomial by a monomial. All right, so let's give you an example. So if I ask you to simplify this ugly thing divided by that monomial, then what would you do? Well, you can break it up in pieces, right? You can say, okay, well, isn't this divided by this piece divided by this minus this piece divided by this. So that's what I did. First, you can break it up in pieces. You only do this when you see that the some of these can be divided and reduced because of the numbers that are at the bottom. So if you notice up here, you have xy in each piece. So I can divide that xy from the bottom part. So in this particular case, that's why I broke it up into 3 pieces, because that was fairly simple. So now how do we divide this out? Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. X to the 4th divided by x to the 1st power, 4 minus 1 is 3. And then 3 minus, there's an imaginary 1 there, so 3 minus 1 is 2. Next part, what's 12 divided by 3? Well, you get 4. And x to the 3rd power divided by x to the 1st, 3 minus 1 is 2. And then y squared divided by y to the 1st power, 2 minus 1, you get 1y, so y to the 1st power. Then it's minus, so minus. 18 divided by 3 is 6. X squared divided by x, 2 minus 1, you get x to the 1. And then y minus, okay, so this is where, this is an imaginary 1, imaginary 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, and what's y to the 0 power? 1. So 1 times this is just this. So notice how just y divided by y, you'll say it cancels, but it cancels because you end up with a y to the 0 power, which is the number 1. And 1 times anything disappears, right? It's just the thing. Now, there's this other method called long division that you could also use to divide that out, okay? So I could have been either way, but look at this. When you have 2 things that are divided that kind of look like this, maybe this is a quadratic, and then you have it looks more like the linear, right? X to the 1st power part. When you have this type of situation, then you can use long division. This is kind of the division you're used to, like if you're just dividing like 500 divided by 5 or something. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Well, what you do is you place your dividend inside the symbol here, and then of course your divisor out there. So you're dividing this inside here. So you say to yourself, okay, I have x minus 5 dividing into this piece. So x times x would give me x squared, right? So that's the first term you're going to use here. So x, because x times x is x squared. Then you also remember you have to like distribute to this part. What's x times negative 5? You get negative 5. So there's a x squared and there's the minus 5x. Now, think of when you were dividing, when you learned how to do this kind of division with anything. What do you always do with this line? You always subtract it from this one, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. All right, so then I'm going to be subtracting this. So you subtract this and you subtract that part, which actually, remember, minus a minus actually becomes plus. So therefore, you're going to have to be super careful at this step. All of these, in other words, if this was positive x squared minus 5x, they turn opposite because you're supposed to subtract that. So this becomes minus x squared plus 5x. So x minus x, 0, cancels out. 3x plus 5x, you get 8x. So this will be 8x, and then you bring down the minus 40. Now you do the process again. How do I get rid of 8x? I multiply this by 8. So then I put a plus 8. 8 times x, 8x. 8 times negative 5, you get negative 40. But remember, all of these become negative or opposite sign because you're supposed to subtract this layer. So this is actually negative 8x, and negative becomes plus 40. So 8 minus 8x, 0. Negative 40 plus 40, 0. And guess what? I'm finished. So what does this mean? X plus 8 times x minus 5 is equal to that, or the opposite. What is this divided by this? The answer is x plus 8. So that's another method of dividing. Next, we're going to look at synthetic division. Now look at that word synthetic. Anytime like synthetic oil, if you put that in your car, it's like an artificial oil, right? It's made up of chemicals and stuff. So that's what this is. It's kind of a made up division. This is like a different form. It's still dividing, but it's going to help us to find also the factors and answers to when you have a division problem of this type. So let's say I give you this example. I want you to find this big thing, or this polynomial, divided by this x minus 4 equals 2. Okay, so yes, you can do the long division, that method right here that I just showed you, but let's learn how to do synthetic division. So I give you all the steps here, so as long as you follow the steps, you should be okay. So if you notice, the steps right here start with, first, you got to write all the coefficients. So let me remind you again what coefficients are. Coefficients are those numbers that are in front of the letters, right? So if you notice, the coefficients here are 2, -13, 26, and -24. So that's what you're going to be writing down. 2, -13, 26, and -24. What goes out here is the term that is here, but the opposite of it. So if you have -4, then you're going to put a +4 here, okay? Because the rule is you write the r of the divisor x minus r. So if this is x minus r, you already have the minus here, so this is just plain r. So that's what you're going to put here, the r, which is your divisor. All right, and then what you do is, to get started, let's say you already have all this written down. You bring your first coefficient, bring it down. So 2, just brought it down here. And then you multiply this number by that first coefficient. So what's 4 times 2? It's 8. So now you take these two. So see, now you're going to add -13 plus the 8 and see what you get. So -13 plus 8 should give you -5. And so if you notice here, I have the -13 plus 8 gives me -5. Repeat the process. Then -5 times 4, you write it here. That's -20. 26 minus 20 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. -24 plus 24, 0. There we go. So my answer, I'm done. So now you put it all together. Normally, you don't start with x cubed, you start with the next number down. Since you already divided by an x, you're going to probably start with the x squared term. So therefore, if this is my answer, I put 2 in front of the x squared, minus 5 in front of the x. So x squared, x to the first power. Here it's x to the 0 power. Because can you see how you don't see it anymore? Remember, x to the 0 is 1. So 1 times 6 is 6. So therefore, if you started with squared, you go x, nothing, and you're pretty much done. So if you notice, your last number was +6. So that's your answer. This is doing synthetic division. So follow my steps 1 through 5, and then you'll be able to get the answer to this type of a division question. All right, so then we're going to look at, let's see what your packet says now. So in your packet, section 5-2, dividing polynomial expressions, you'll see some examples of you having to do that. Just, sometimes you'll be able to divide it into 3 pieces, like this one, just the way that I showed you in the example. And then, of course, start, simplifying each of these pieces individually. So the steps are here and the answers and so on. Then you can practice one on your own. Then you're going to see that in some cases they're going to ask you to do long division, just as I showed you. So it's just a matter of practicing. Do not forget that when you subtract this layer, you subtract both pieces, so you kind of distribute that negative to both of these terms here. And then they're going to ask you also to do some examples with synthetic division. So once you get through that set, you're going to see some of the synthetic division being used. So let me see if, yeah. So here you have something like, using the synthetic division example. So go ahead and go into the study guide and you will see the different examples using the long division and of course then the other method. So let's go ahead and try one of these. Let me do, this one looks pretty long. This one does too, so maybe let me do number 9 for you. And so remember oops, sorry about that. Let me do a better job. So let's do it down here. So you place all of that information into here. And once all the terms are there, then I place, of course, is the divisor. So then you've got x minus 2. So we start the process. I say, okay, well, I need x times something to equal 2x to the third power. So what you do is you say, okay, well, x times, I need x squared for sure, and a 2, and that should do it, because 2 times x squared times x gives me 2 to the x to the third power. So here I get 2x to the third. And now when you do that, you should get the exact same numbers here. When you do that, then you just multiply this by this term. So you get negative 4x squared. But then you remember from your division, like when you were a kid doing the regular division of numbers, you had to subtract this level, right? So it's negative 2, but then if you subtract a minus, then this becomes plus. So now 2 minus 2 cancels. So now this is negative 5 plus 4. You get negative x squared. Continue the process. So bring down the next number, which is plus 4x, and I continue. So now I need to say, okay, x times what will give me this negative x squared? And so the only thing is a negative x, because negative times positive is negative, and x times x is x squared. And then negative x, so then I get x squared, negative, and then x times negative 2, I get a negative times negative, actually it's a positive 2x. And so now here's my next level, but you got to remember that this level you subtract, right? So minus minus actually becomes plus, and minus plus becomes minus. So now negative x plus x cancels. 4 minus 2, I get 2x. And I believe I have one more term, yes, and minus 4. So bring down the last term from up here. And I do the process one more time. So now, let me just lower it a little bit so we can still see. There. All right, so now I take same process. You say, okay, x times what gives me 2x. At that point, it's plus 2. So 2 times x is 2x, they match. And 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And remember, we're supposed to subtract all of this, so a minus 2x minus a minus becomes a plus, which is perfect because 2x minus 2x is 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. I'm done. So the correct answer is right here, 2x squared minus x plus 2. All right, so let's continue and see. The next section is a study guided intervention showing you synthetic division. And here's yet one more example of the synthetic division and the steps you need to take. So please make sure and, practice this again. Remember, what are the steps? Write down the coefficients. 2, negative 5, plus 5, and negative 2. There they are. Copy this one down. You say 2 times 1. You write it here, which is 2. And then you add or subtract it. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 times 1 is 3, so on and so forth. You keep going that process until you hopefully reach a 0. If not, you're going to end up with a remainder. And so there you have the problems. You've seen several, an example from me and one from the the demonstration here and some in the slides. So now it's just a matter for you to practice doing these type of problems. And here are some more practice questions also for you to continue so you can just get better and better with your skills.